Hi everyone, it's Stephanie here and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be creating an interactive card and we're going to be using the new Turntable Die-namics. This die features all of the parts you need to create the record as well as the arm of the record player, and you can put everything together, and if you use brads to assemble the card you can actually make it interactive and make your record turn. So that's what we're going to do in today's video. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create a label for my record. So I die cut the record from a piece of white cardstock, and now I'm taking a circle from the Circle Stacks 2 Dynamics, as well as the little circle piece that comes in the Turntable die set, and I'm just die cutting the record. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a smaller circle area and then also creating that hole in the center. And what I'm planning to do with this is layer it over top of another record so that I can create a fun, colorful label that we can add to the top. So I want to create a really colorful label, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some distress inks and I'm going to add color to this entire label. Now if you know me, you know I'm probably going to do rainbow, but you can definitely change it up and do whatever colors you like. I just thought it would look really cool to have all of these different colors on the label so that when you turn it, you get all of the different colors as you turn the record around. So I just pulled out all of my favorite distress ink colors, and I'm starting off with the picked raspberry first, and then I went in with some abandoned coral. I'm using mustard seed for the yellow, and as I add the different colors on here, I like to go back with the previous color and just kind of blend that one back in. It just really helps to kind of blend the colors together and get rid of any harsh lines from bringing in the newest color. For the green, we're using Mowed Lawn. For the blue, we're using Peacock Feathers, and then I'm going to finish it off with Wilted Violet for the purple, which is going to blend nicely with the blue as well as the pink when it meets that side of the record. And because distress inks do stay wet for a little while, I'm using a piece of scratch paper underneath of the fingers that I'm using to hold the record down. And this is just going to prevent me putting any fingerprints into that inking. And it's also going to make sure I don't have any ink transfer onto my fingers, which I will end up getting on the card elsewhere. Okay, so we have the label finished now, so we can move on to the actual record part. And for this, if you want to save some time, you can die cut this from black cardstock, but I wanted to use Copic markers to do the coloring so I could get some shading on here and kind of look like there was a light source reflecting on the vinyl of the record. So I decided to use Copics and just kind of start with my lightest color and work my way up to my darkest color just to create some highlights on there. So I'm filling in the center area as well as the outside, and I realized when I got it fully colored that I didn't quite have it as dark as I wanted it, so I did grab another marker and went over it a second time to add a little bit more color there. And then I also went around the outside edge just to make sure I had it fully colored, and now you can see we have a record and the label. Now when I put the label onto the colored record, I realized that my label was way too big and you wouldn't actually have been able to play the record because the label was covering half of it. So I decided to trim it down a little bit more with another circle die that was slightly smaller, and now I'm going to adhere this directly to the record with some liquid glue. So I'm just going to position it right in the center there and press down to make sure that's fully adhered, and now we have the record portion completed. Now we need to create the base of the card and decide how we're going to lay out all of the different components. So I have a white cardstock panel here that measures 4 inches by 5 1/4, and I've die cut the arm for the turntable from some silver sparkle cardstock. I kind of figured out where I wanted to place those, and now I'm going to stamp out the sentiment that we're going to use so we have all of the different pieces ready to go and we can put everything on at once. So for the sentiment, I'm using For the Record, I Really Like You from the new For the Record stamp set. I stamped it out onto a piece of raspberry cardstock with some Versamark ink, which is just a clear sticky ink, and then I added white embossing powder over top and heat set that with my heat tool. Now I changed my mind on the base part of the arm for the turntable. I decided I wanted to incorporate a bunch of color into this card. So I wanted pink for the sentiment strip, I decided to use blue raspberry for the base of the arm, and then I'm going to use Limelight for my card base. So what I need to do now, because I want to be able to actually turn the record, is I need to pop a little hole in my panel here. And this is where I'm going to add a brad through the record so that we can easily turn it. Now, the hole in the actual record is a little bit too big for the brad, so when I put the brad in, it kind of moves around, and I don't want it to do that. I want it to be able to turn, but I don't want it to move underneath of the brad. So what I did is I just added a little circle to the back of this, and I just glued it in place, so you can see that little bit of white peeking through. You're not going to actually see that because the brad is going to cover it, but it's going to allow me to create a smaller hole in the center, which is going to be a little bit more snug around the brad. So while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going ahead and assembling the arm part. So I put a hole into the turntable arm as well as the base, and I'm just going to put a little silver brad right through both of those holes to attach that on there. And now you can see I can actually move that arm on that little base piece there, so we're going to be able to move that when we assemble everything together. So now that the inside of the record is dry, I'm going to go ahead and take another brad, the exact same design as that first one I used, and I'm just going to pop that through the record and then through the panel. So now I have it fully attached, and you can see that the record actually spins there when I move it with my fingers. Now to attach the little base part of the turntable arm, I'm going to use some foam adhesive because I want this raised off the card a little bit. So I put 2 tiny strips at the top and bottom so that I was still able to easily move that brad. And I'm going to position that right in the top right corner. And then you can see once I have that in place, I can move that arm so that it actually moves on the record where I have it positioned. And you can just kind of pull up a tiny bit if it kind of wants to tuck underneath of the record. Since we have the foam adhesive on the base of it, it's going to help it to kind of sit a little bit higher on the card. Okay, so now it's time to add our sentiment strip, and I want that to layer over top of the record, but I don't want it to actually adhere to the record because that will stop it from being able to turn. So what I'm doing is I'm putting foam adhesive on this as well, and I'm doing 2 layers of foam adhesive just so it's nice and raised off of the card. And I'm making sure to only put it on both ends of this sentiment strip here. So I trimmed off one of the ends so it's completely flat, so it'll go right against the left side of the card. And then I left that fishtail banner design on the other end. And this was die cut with the Hearts in a Row horizontal dynamics. This has these really great skinny sentiment strips, and I love using them with my sentiment stamps. So now once I adhered that on, you can see that we have the sentiment in place, our record easily turns, and the little turntable arm moves as well. Now the last thing we need to do to put this on the card is we're going to put foam adhesive on the back of the panel. And that's just going to allow that brad to easily be able to move and not kind of hold it in place, and that's going to let the record move easily. So I put the foam adhesive all over the back of the panel, and I adhered it directly onto our A2 size card base, which is Limelight cardstock. And now you can see there I can move the record, we get that really fun rainbow color effect, and then I can move the arm of the turntable as well. So just some really cool interactive elements that's kind of unexpected, but a fun surprise for the recipient. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is just add some clear sequins to the card. So I added those on with some matte multimedium. And now I'm taking some silver stickles and I'm just adding that to the center of all of the sequins just to coordinate with that arm that we created with the silver sparkle cardstock. And then once I have that done, our card is complete and we have this really fun interactive card. It's kind of clean and simple. We've kept it pretty plain on the front, but we did add lots of fun, colorful elements. And of course, we have the interactive arm as well as the spinning record. So I hope this gave you some ideas on ways that you can use the new Turntable Die-namics. If you're interested in any of the supplies I've used, I've linked them below in the video description. As always, I appreciate you being here for another video, and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks so much for watching.